Hello everyone, my name is Rocky and welcome back to another very special episode on my YouTube channel. Today, as you guys can see on the screen, we're going to be going over a rather uncommon SMMA outreach method that I've never really seen any other YouTubers talk about and that I personally used to jumpstart my SMA career. Although this outreach method is kind of uncommon, I really feel like it's one of the most effective ways to secure your first or second client as a small SMMA owner. But before we go into that, let's talk about a little bit who I am, why I even have credibility to speak on this issue. So obviously my name is Rocky. I am a 16-year-old agency owner, so I'm relatively young still, but I do have some experience. I started my agency in 2022, so it's been almost a year now, and I have 12 different clients. I've worked with 12 different clients in many different industries, so everything from retail, restaurants, nonprofits, health and beauty, e-com, you name it. So while I may not be an expert at SMMA yet, I have experienced outreach, the grueling pains of cold outreach, just like many of you guys might be going through right now. I know how that process works, and I know how that process works across all these different niches. You know, while I do have some experience, I am still learning like all of you, and this video is a testament to that. So now, before we get into the new or uncommon SMMA outreach strategy, let's talk about the current options that us agency owners have to choose from. So there's mainly four, and I'll get into all of them here. So first, cold calling. This is obviously the staple of SMMA outreach strategies, and it's one that SMMA YouTubers push up all the time, and for good reason. It's, as you can see on the slide, there are many pros to it. It's direct one-on-one communication with the client, so you're talking directly to them. It's highly targeted, so you can pick out exactly who you want to reach. And you get instant feedback, so you don't have to wait days for a response and keep following up like you might with a cold email. You get a response immediately. However, there are some cons with this outreach method, as there are for all outreach methods. It has a higher learning curve, right? To close a cold call, it's kind of hard. You need to know some sales tactics. You might have to get a script, might have to watch a couple videos on cold calling to successfully do it. Second, it's sometimes seen as intrusive or annoying. If you're calling someone's personal phone, they might hang up immediately. Nobody likes getting spam called. Third, it's widely used. So while this might not seem like a con at first, it is in my eyes, because if everyone is cold calling, right, and businesses get cold calls every single day from agency owners just like you, then this outreach method kind of starts to get saturated, right? They are more wary of agency owners trying to sell them things over cold calls. So that might impede your own performance during cold calls. Some final cons are the gatekeepers, obviously. Everyone hates dealing with them, and it's time consuming. You have to dial up each of these numbers, do research on them individually. So second is cold emailing. I alluded to this in the previous slide. There are a couple pros and cons for this. So for pros, it has high volume capabilities. Like I said, with an email, you can just send it out to a bunch of contacts. It's less intrusive, right? So you're not directly calling them, asking for their time directly over the phone. You are giving them the opportunity to respond or not. So it's seen as more polite in the business sense. Cold emailing also has easy automated follow-up. So if you have a software, you can automatically follow up with them. Whereas for a cold call, you might have to dial them manually. And there's tracking and analytic features, so you can see who's actually clicked on your cold email and maybe target them more. There are some cons though, so you're not getting direct communication. You're not talking directly to them, right? They could choose just to leave your email. You're not getting that response directly. Cold emails can be easily deleted or ignored, right? And there's a lack of personal touch. Cold emails kind of feel distant as opposed to hearing someone's voice over the phone. Third is cold DMing, another staple in the outreach sector of the SMMA industry. So some pros, it's more informal and conversational, right? People are on these social platforms to have these new conversations with these new people. So they are expecting people to talk to them, right? So it's more almost friendly in that case. There are also higher open rates. Like I said, people are on these platforms to talk to new people. so they're going to be opening your messages more often. And the final pro is you can utilize visual and audio engagement. So that means that instead of just writing text out, you can send a voice message, you can send over images to them, which is much more common over cold DMing. In cold DMing, you can have these different formats of communication. Cons, though, you get limited content depth, so most DMs are very short and you kind of have to make your pitch within these characters or less, which might be limiting for you, especially if you have a really specific value proposition. Additionally, there's variability between social platforms. So what might work for a cold DM on Facebook might not exactly work on, let's say, Snapchat or WhatsApp or Instagram. There might be some differences in the effectiveness of the DMing based on platforms. And finally, there's more time commitment to build a connection and to start and maintain a conversation, right? So cold calling, you can just call them up. But for cold DMing, you have to reach out to them, get them to follow you back, maybe like a few of their posts, and then DM them to make it seem most natural. And lastly, and honestly, the best out of these four is referrals. So the pros is you immediately have established credibility. If a friend recommends you something, you are most likely going to trust that friend and trust their opinion. So if a client recommends you to another client, you are already building trust with that other potential client, right? Just because that your current client trusts you that much to recommend you. Additionally, you're getting high quality leads, right? So a client's not going to recommend you to another client if they don't think that they need the help, right? They're only going to recommend you to that client if they think that that other person could use the help. So basically, the referral process also serves as a vetting process to filter out low quality leads. Final pro is there's minimal cost or time commitment. You do not have to do anything when it comes to referrals. You just have to do your job well and then maybe ask a client to refer you, and that's it. But there are a lot of cons for this. It's limited by your client's reach. So if your client doesn't really know anyone, then referrals are just not going to happen because they don't know any other business owners to refer you to. It's also bad for new SMMAs because you don't have any clients, like I said, that can refer you. Third, you have a lack of control, so you can't control who they're referring you to. And last, you have inconsistent lead flow. So sometimes you might get a lot of referrals from your clients, but sometimes you might get none at all. And that's just up to your client, which is a really big negative about referrals. So after hearing about those four staple outreach methods, what is this new outreach method and how could it change the game? So this is in-person outreach. Now, don't click off the video yet. I know that sounds kind of scary, kind of different, but hear me out and let me explain why in-person outreach is so effective for new SMMA owners. Let me first define what in-person outreach is. So essentially it is building that connection with a business owner in person, face to face, and then sending out your offer or your proposal to them either in person or online. But the main part about in-person outreach is you're building that connection face to face. You're making that first impression, not over the phone, but to their face. So why is this so effective? So first, most small business owners are tech phobic, and I know a lot of you can agree, especially if you're in tech phobic niches, and they're wary of traditional outreach methods, right? Some of these business owners don't even have websites. How do you think they'll be able to navigate their email or check their phone or even open their cold DMs, right? They might just not respond best to this type of online communication. And that ties into my second point. They prefer and trust face-to-face communication. They're more traditional, you know? They want that face-to-face communication to get to know you as a person. Third, it's hard for them to say no to your face. I could easily tell someone no over an email, but it's much harder if you actually know that person in real life to say no to them. Fourth, it shows an extra level of commitment and confidence because nowadays online outreach is so easy. No business owner is expecting you to come in person to talk to them. And if you do that, it makes you stand out with that extra level of effort. Fifth is you get immediate feedback. Just like with cold calls, they can immediately say yes or no to your face and you won't have to waste your time with following up and stuff. But this has an extra level of added feedback, right? While you're talking to them, while you're making that pitch, you can gauge whether they're liking it or not, and you can add some extra some extra incentive if they aren't, right? You can tell by their facial expression if they're vibing with your pitch or if they're not. And lastly, it adds a level of memorability. It gives you that standout factor. It's not every day where a business owner gets a pitch done to their face. And because you do that, you stand out. So who is in-person outreach for? Like I said before, in-person outreach is really effective for SMMA owners who are in tech-phobic or old-fashioned niches. So some examples are home improvement, real estate, and retail. The business owners in these niches are just generally older and more traditional and just don't vibe with tech in general, and they just don't trust all that stuff. So in-person outreach would be great for those type of people, but also for smaller SMA owners without case studies to leverage. So a very big part of SMA outreach is utilizing your case studies. So if you already have a couple of clients, right, and you have that case study from that previous client, showing that to a new client just proves your credibility, proves that you can get results. But a new SMA owner does not have those case studies to leverage. So instead of leveraging case studies to stand out, you can leverage in-person outreach to stand out, because you're going in person, you're building that personal connection, and you're getting to know that business owner in a way that other agencies vying for that client would not be able to. Alright, so how do you use in-person outreach? So once you've seen this, you can't just click off this video and go waltzing to your nearest small business. You need to have a plan. And on this slide, I've labeled out a 5-step plan. And it's not always going to be like this. You're going to have some variation, but this is a good framework to start. So first, you need to identify and research prospects. Just like with any SMMA outreach method, you need to identify what businesses you want to ideally reach and close with your outreach method. So you can open up a Google Sheet, get some basic information like business owner name, business owner contact, business name, website, address, etc. And then go from there. Second, you need to plan your approach. This is a really interesting part in that it's going to vary from business to business. You want to be going in at a time where the owner is there so you can build that connection with the owner directly. So what I like to do is usually call the restaurant or the business itself and ask who the owner is first, and then ask when he usually is in at the store. If it is an actual small business, more likely than not, the owner will be the only one working there or one of the only employees working there. So from there, you can call and see his hours and then drop by during those times. So 3, you need to build an in-person connection. Like I said, go into that restaurant, actually become a patron of that restaurant or that business, right? Check out their stuff and talk to the owner like as if you were a customer or if you were just a friend. Build that in-person connection first before going in and doing your salesman-like pitch. This is really effective for a couple of reasons. So first, building that connection first before doing your pitch, it makes you seem more trusted when you eventually pitch your agency's services. The business owner is going to be way more accepting to talking to you if they think you're just another customer or just someone who's interested in what they do, rather than an agency trying to sell them something. So fourth, now once you've built that connection, once you've been there a couple of times, you and the owner know each other to some extent, you need to reach out and schedule a meeting. So this can obviously be done in person, but this can also just as easily be done online. After a couple of times of seeing the owner in person, you can ask for his business card, get his contact information, his personal contact information, and you can text him and ask to schedule a meeting about your services, right? More likely than not, they're going to be ecstatic to talk with you, as they've already built this kind of friendly connection with you, and they're happy to hear you out with anything that you have to say. So last is just execute and close, right? This is a big part of any SMMA outreach strategy, but of course for this one as well. You just need to, use your presentational skills, your salesman tactics that you guys have obviously learned from other YouTube videos, and do that and close the client. While this does sound handy dandy and amazing, there are some potential drawbacks like there are with every outreach method. So first, it's very time costly. As you guys heard when I described it in the previous slide, you guys are going to need to do research, you guys are going to need to go into the business in person a couple of times, then reach out to them over online. It's so time consuming. and it may actually waste your time if the client doesn't end up closing in that final meeting. But this can be minimized if you do your research and you find high quality prospects, right? If you find those business owners that would be dumb to say no, that you are literally guaranteed to close because they just need your services so bad, right? If you do that research and you find those high quality leads, then you're guaranteed to close them, and this won't be a problem for you. Second, it does require some charisma and social competence, right? You need to know how to talk to people, and while this may seem daunting at first, you just need to treat it like a regular conversation. You guys are agency owners, you guys are entrepreneurs, right? Networking is our thing. You guys need to know how to do that, and I'm sure many of you already do. So you just need to treat it like a normal conversation and talk to them as if you were a normal person. This also might seem like much harder than cold calling is, but honestly it's not, because cold calling, it's kind of a new facet of communication. You're not used to cold calling someone, but you are used to talking to them as a person, right? You are used to having in-person conversations. So you're not really building a new skill, rather you're just repurposing your conversational skills for this outreach method. And finally, one last drawback of in-person outreach is it does have low scalability potential, right? You're not gonna have time to be able to meet in person with 30 different potential clients when you get to that size. Like I said before, this method is more for beginners, just to get their first client down and get their first case study down, which they can then leverage to use those other 4 main outreach methods. So remember, every SMMA outreach method has its pros and cons. It is your responsibility to find the right mix for your outreach strategy. So you shouldn't just be relying on cold calls or just relying on referrals. You should have a good mix of all of these outreach strategies and more that supplements your needs and fits your goals in your niche. So that's it. Thank you all so much for watching through to the end of this video. I hope you guys learned something new about SMMA outreach methods, and I hope you guys think about implementing this into your own SMMA outreach strategies. That's it for me. Rocky out.